we'll get started in just a couple minutes. If you haven't already, please sign in. We need to have 54 folks for a quorum. There's a sheet over here and a sheet somewhere else. Okay, please sign in, and we'll get started as soon as I get the batteries for this microphone changed. Test. So much. Test. If you have not signed in, if you can please sign in. I think both Dan and Lance both have a sign-up sheet. We need to make sure we have quorum before we start.
Yes.
We got her locked up. All right, thank you all. We're going to call the meeting to order. For our notes, it's 10:40.
Can you can do the screens, Jim? What? We do the screens?
Yeah, I'm on it. We're going to start with our devotions. If you don't, you need an annual report. On the back of the annual report, inside cover are the devotions. Does everybody have an annual report? You need one? Anybody need one? Okay. We need to get some to a few folks there. Okay. The devotions are just on the back page there. John, go forward. I think 2 now. Yeah. The response to several different petitions are simply this: God has called us for such a time as this. Let's practice that together. God has called us for such a time as this. Let me share this litany, and you respond with me. Today our congregation gathers in prayer and hope to begin another year of ministry. We bring with us the memory of a year like no other. And even as we move into a future that we cannot yet imagine, yet even now, as in every age, God is our refuge and strength. In times of plenty and in want, in times of conflict and peace, in times of growing and pruning, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. We remember the past year with lament and gratitude. We have lost so much, and so much still feels uncertain. We've also witnessed God's hand at work in new and unexpected ways. We delight at hidden seeds bearing surprising and wonderful fruit. When our own resources fail, when we cannot predict the future, when we must rely on God alone, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. We celebrate this moment in the many ways God has held us together as a community. We give thanks for the gift of our church building and the welcome it provides. Even as we bless God for the marvel of technology and the new bonds of connection it makes possible. When our bodies need sanctuary, when our minds need expanding, when your grace must transcend our limitations, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. We look ahead to the road we will travel together this year. We anticipate and receive with joy the new gifts God's love has planned. We pray for the grace to let go of what has served its holy purpose. When we are trailblazers or followers, when we are seekers or visionaries, when we must walk by faith and not by sight, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. And so we pray. Grace our meeting, O God, with the gift of your Holy Spirit, the Spirit who has guided the church from the beginning, the Spirit of our risen Lord Jesus. The Spirit who sends us as healers and restorers of your beloved world. You are the source of our life together. You are the rock and cornerstone. You have called us for such a time as this. We're going to sing a cappella. Just the first two. We're going to sing the first and the fourth verse of God of the Fertile Fields. You know the tune. God of the fertile fields. Da, 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 da. You'll if you don't know it, you will by the end. We'll sing verse 1 and verse 4 together. God of the fertile fields, shaper of earth that yields our daily bread, forth from your bounteous hand come gifts of love as when, that all in every land be clothed and fed. Verse 4. God of the countryside, dear to the Christ who died, to make us one, we pledge our lives anew in faithful love to you. Guide all we say and do, your will be done. Pray this prayer with me. O God, you have called your servants to adventures of which we cannot see any, by paths that you have trodden, through perils unknown. Give us faith to go out with courage, not knowing where we go, but only that your hand is leading us and not supporting us. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Thank you. Next, I would like to I'd entertain a motion to approve our agenda that you can find on page 1 of your report.
Next one, John. Yep.
I got a first from Marcus and a second from Matt. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, if you mind leading us in mission statement. Next, we'd like to go through our guiding principles as a congregation and read aloud. We exist to grow in faith and make Christ known to all. Jesus Christ is our saving Savior. Everyone is welcome and invited. Grow in faith through the Holy Spirit, guided uniting us in prayer and worship and study of the Word. Share God's love through our words and actions. Through Jesus Christ, all is possible. We are saved by grace through faith. All right, next I would entertain a motion to accept our minutes from last year's annual report. Those minutes can be found on page 3 and 4 in your guide. We have a first. We have a second. Have a second. Yep. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, we'll have the pastor's report.
Well, what a year it's been. I appreciate the litany that acknowledges, the gift of technology, even when it doesn't work. We've been able to connect and grow and serve in a variety of different ways. I can remember back, and I will again recall you back to, and some of you were members of this congregation in June or July of 2009. How many of you would have been members of this congregation back then? June or July of 2009, okay? That's when I got a call from the Synod office in Iowa City, and they told me about a congregation named New Life Within Church in Norwalk, Iowa. And the thing that I remember over and over and over again from that call from Eric Carlson and Paul Ostrom, who were assistants to the bishop at the time, they kept telling me about this congregation that had potential. They kept telling me about this congregation that had all kinds of potential in front of it. I, as you know, accepted a call to this congregation in November of 2009 and started here in January 1st of 2010. And this congregation's changed in the years that you called me to be your pastor. I recognize it. How many of you are new since January of 2010? Would you raise your hand if you're a new face among us since January 2010? So there's lots of new faces, right? There's lots of old faces, right? And that always leads to the conflict of whose congregation is this, right? Is this my congregation that existed before, or is this my congregation as I joined it? What is that? What does that look like? We have had since long before I got here, that mission statement and guiding principles of we exist to grow in faith and make Christ known, right? Some of you, any of you, I'm going to ask for hands again. Do you remember being a part of the group that fashioned these guiding principles in this mission statement? Marcus and Eugene, Gloria, Sandy, yeah, Carrie, Alan, Brent, yeah. Some of you were a part of these guiding principles for us. The reality of these guiding principles is that they are read at the annual meeting, and they were read at the annual meeting in 2010, and they were read at the annual meeting in 2011, they were read at the annual meeting in 2012, right? And all of those years since, they've been read at the annual meeting. We know that, I put it in a really big word in the screens. These are really sound and profound guiding principles for us as a congregation. But this next word is really important too, John. How? How do we do that? How do we grow in faith and make Christ known? That's really been an issue for us as a congregation. Just how do we grow in faith and make Christ known? I'm really thankful for the last year worth of work that you helped us do as we tried to fashion and tried to identify some new ministries priorities. They are not revolutionary. In fact, every congregation should be about these things. But we as a congregation, we need to get a little bit sharper and a little bit clearer about how we grow in faith and make Christ known. Okay? And I will accept the fact that I, as your pastor, need to get a little bit more clear on how we grow in faith and make Christ known. Okay? Over the course of the work that we've done with Kairos and Associates, with Pastor Joe Crowder, who came and met with the council several different times, met with many of you several times. We tried to fashion a little bit more of a simpler ministry priority for us. And so those guiding principles do not go away. Those are a part of who we are. That mission statement is a part of who we are. Even though it is just a sticker on the wall, it could come off, but that's who we are, and that's part of our identity. I hope that we can, I really do, and I believe that we can start to live into this mission statement when we clarify and when we're focused on three different words, and these three words are just simply this: connecting and growing and serving. Is that the next one? Yeah, thanks. Connect and grow and serve. Connect and grow and serve. I hope that by the end of this year, you are tired of hearing those words. I really do. You shared with us in our listening phase over the course of this last summer and fall, you shared with us that you wanted to be a congregation that connected and grew and served. You know that you love the family feel of New Life Lutheran Church. That was profound for us as we looked at the results of those interviews and surveys. You love to call this congregation a family. What that means is that you love to be cared for, you love to be known by name. It's really helpful, by the way, when we do name tags so that we can remember one another's names, right? Because the reality is that there's always new people, right? We had 4 families that visited this Sunday. We had one gentleman who came at 10:30. He had his Bible in his hand, and I greeted him and I said, "Come back next Sunday because we switched the schedule just this 1 week." There's always new faces among us. So when there's new faces among us, how do we retain the identity of a family feel? How do we retain the identity of a community that cares deeply for one another? And part of that means knowing one another by name, right? How do we do that? Well, that begins with investment in connecting, and that's a two-way investment, right? Of leadership and congregation and pastor. That was three-way. Two-way path of connecting congregation and leadership to one another, right? And so you bear some responsibility in helping to connect into the life of the congregation. How do we grow? Well, we're this year, and Alan will get into this. We're identifying and allocating some additional resources towards our children and youth. We're allocating some additional resources towards our growing ministries. And then just how exactly we do this, that thing on the wall over there, making Christ known, how are we about those things? You told us that you love to be part of a congregation that serves in the community. And we ought to first love, yes, this community. That doesn't mean that love stops at this community, but it expands, it grows, it goes further than this community. But how will we serve in this, or how will we make Christ known? That's through our service. And so I really do hope that you are tired of those words at the end of this year. Those will be as you helped us to identify our guiding principles. I also want to say this, that this year, 2021, I almost said 2011. This past year, 2021, has been, and I keep saying this to a couple of colleagues that I keep having coffee with. I keep saying this is an absolutely incredible time to be a pastor. This is an incredibly terrible time to be a pastor. It is, right? And you know that. This is incredibly wonderful time to be a firefighter. It's an incredibly difficult time to be a firefighter. This is an incredibly wonderful time to be a police officer. It's an incredibly difficult time to be a police officer. It's an incredibly wonderful time, and it's an incredibly difficult time. And I thank you for your grace of me over the course of this last year. That said, I'm really excited about some clarified ministry priorities that help us to grow in faith and make Christ known. You'll see shortly that will be a challenge for us. But I also expect that as congregation, we can live into and realize the potential of this congregation. In coffee with some colleagues, maybe in the last year or so, or in the last month or so, one colleague said this of New Life Lutheran Church. They said, what I know of that congregation, this congregation, is that it is a sleeping giant. I was startled by that, but I do believe that in clarifying how we go about growing in faith and making Christ known, that we can do some incredible things together. I'm very excited about that, and I hope that you are too. If you have any questions, I would love to entertain those, but if not, I'll end my report. Okay, thank you. I think Leslie's up next. Leslie's going to give her children and family ministry coordinator report. Thanks, Leslie.
Okay, well, sorry, I haven't been in the room, I've been in and out. I heard Pastor Nate kind of talk about the challenge of the past year, and it was kind of a challenging year for Children and Family Ministry, but overall, I would deem it a strong success. We changed up some of the things that we've done. We did VBS a little bit differently and chose to do an ELCA-based curriculum, and then focused it more inwardly with the children that are members of the church. We still had roughly 30 kids that participated each day, and a strong core of volunteers that came each night. And I think the kids really enjoyed the curriculum. It was a little bit easier for us to make work with our size and capacity. And we even had some outside students that attended as guests of members of our church, so that was real positive. We altered how we did the Easter egg hunt. And we didn't do it as a regular Easter egg hunt. We did a drive-by Easter egg event where people came through and picked up cartons of eggs. We were able to distribute almost all of those, and I think that was a success as well. And then as our kickoff to the year for Sunday school for the 21-22 year, we did Nerf and Nachos, which everybody seemed to have a great time at. So we'll probably continue that for future years. We also had our Christmas program. We had one of the largest numbers of participants that we had. And we also did that kind of as a joint effort with the confirmation students so that they were able to help out with the program. And that was a huge positive opportunity for us to kind of expand out of a pre-K through 5 to a pre-K through 8 capacity. I'm really looking forward to Sunday school in these upcoming months. Next month, we're doing a Winter Olympics themed curriculum that I'm super pumped about. I told the kids that we're having cardboard box bobsled races, and they're really excited about that. So if anybody else wants to join us as we try and go down the hall, come join us next week. Our participation has been a little bit lower than I would have hoped, but we're continuing to grow in numbers, and that's I think a positive effort of our church being, continuing to grow and to add new members. So any questions? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, I'll go over our membership report, which you can find on page 7. This won't take very long, but our active members at the beginning of 2021, we had 393 baptized members and 339 confirmed members. We did include 20 new members that have been baptized and 21 confirmed members. So we did have a few members removed. We've had lost 4 baptized members and 4 confirmed members. So we will see our numbers are slightly higher. We're baptized at 409 and confirmed at 356. Our average attendance at 815 this past year was 26.7 people, and that second service was 79.5. Does anybody have any questions about our membership report? Ben?
Yeah, there's the total annual attendance is wrong. You can't have 0.4.
Yeah, it's a rounding in the system, but thank you. You're right, we cannot have a 0.4 person.
Get your math maker.
All right. before I start my president's report, can I get a motion to adopt our membership report? Jason, do we have a second?
Yes.
John Sperry, second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Before I get into my president's report, I would like Eugene and Carolyn, Nate and Terry, Sandy Anderson, and Leslie to come up if she's still here.
Here, you're supposed to come up here. I know, you can look like that all you want. But you're supposed to.
I asked her, not you, right? We take you as you are. So, not all of our staff happen to be here today, but I wanted to bring our staff in front of you, for you all. We want to just say thank you. You did a great job this past year, and the congregation has graciously provided some gifts for you that I just happen to be lucky enough to be able to hand out. So as I hand these out, we just want to say how much we appreciate you as our staff members. So thank you.
It's just got my, it's just Nikki in there.
So I will point to my written report on page 8 for you to reference. I just want to tell you that it has been a challenging year. But we did some amazing things, I think, at this church. Many of you were involved in our ministry work through Kairos, involved in the community, coming to our community meetings and letting us hear from you on what we want. This is the first time that I've been president of this congregation, but I've been on council, I don't know, about 10 years since I've joined. And this is one of the first times I think we've looked at what our congregation is telling us they want and using that to focus on what we should be doing rather than focusing on what we've done in the past. So I want to thank our boards and all the council for the hard work that went into this. And hopefully we heard you and are coming back with a message and a plan that you appreciate. Other than what's on my written report, does anybody have questions for me before we move to the next step? All right. I'd take a motion to approve the president's report. Matthew, thank you. Do we have a second? Jim, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you. Hey, John, can you go to the next slide? Next, we have the election of congregational council. Do you want to, or do you want to?
I just want to say this real quick. As we elect new congregational council, that means that there's several folks that are leading the congregational council. They need to be thanked. They need to be appreciated. You need to show them your appreciation. They give a lot of time. And some of you have served boards in the past. Some of you are currently serving on boards. But let me just share this real quickly. I don't know if you know this or not, but Alan was actually a classmate of mine at Wartburg College. That was a long time ago. Alan has served as president and vice president before that. He's served in the board of youth. You've served as treasurer before. What else have you served? Any other boards positions?
Board of Education.
Board of Education, yeah. Yeah, it's like Alan just keeps serving, and we really appreciate him. Would you please show him? Let me also, John, you got to come up here too. Grant, come over here too. And we're going to thank Krista in absentia too. Grant Grant has been our youth rep on council. And I don't know how much you know about Grant, but this guy, this young man is involved in so many things. And he chose to, in addition, serve on church council. Who's excited about serving on church council? Grant was. Grant showed up over and over and over again. And I don't know if you know much about him, but letter winner in football, letter winner in wrestling, third place yesterday. You should have beat the one guy with the that's right. And Grant is a jazz band and appointed to military academy. This guy is he's incredible. But please thank him for all his time. John has been on council for 5 years now.
5.5.
Yeah, John, because you know, when somebody leaves the council, then we appoint somebody, and then they serve the end of that appointment, and then they serve a few more years. John kept pushing us as a council to do something, and to do something. And John is really the impetus towards all of the consultant work that we had over the course of the last year, because he wouldn't let it go. And John is somebody who cares deeply about the life and success of this congregation. John, we thank you for all of you. Lastly, let me just note this. May you know Krista Place, she served as chair of Board of Church Life. Not able to be here today. She's having some very major foot surgery coming up shortly, and needs to do kind of the isolation stuff before she begins. I did not want to receive her letter of resignation from council because she really had 1 more year to serve. But she needs to for her health and for her family. But when you see her, please thank her and support her as she recovers. It'll be a long recovery ahead for her. Thanks.
Thank you. First, we would like to present our the new incoming council for the executive committee. Incoming, Dan Blum as president. Abby Olson will be transitioning from our secretary for the past 4 years into the vice president. Allison Seymour has agreed to come in as our secretary. Those are the 3 that we will be voting on. For those of you that are, as both our financial secretary and our treasurer are both appointed by the council. But both Anna Lund and Lance Taylor have agreed to stay on, and they will be appointed at our next council meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve the executive committee, elect the executive committee as a block. Leslie has a first and Marcus has a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Your new president will be taking over shortly. For church council, we will be, Sandy Smith will be coming in as church life. Where is Sandy? Oh, there she is. I'm sorry. Sandy Anderson will be staying on as the Board of Education. Jessica Iverson will be staying on as the Board of Outreach. Cody Bales has agreed to come on as the Board of Property.
Cody, raise your hand in the back.
Jason Reaper has agreed to transition to stewardship. Melissa Norm has agreed to stay on as the Board of Youth. And Lorraine has agreed to come on the Board of Worship. I would entertain an election of our proposed council members as a block.
I'll do it.
Carrie Murray has the first. Do we have a second? Amanda. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up, we have the leadership reports. I will Those can be found on, from the boards, or from pages 9 through 13. If anybody has any questions, now would be a great time to ask. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve all of the board reports as a block.
I motion to approve the board.
Jim has a motion to approve the board reports. Do we have a second?
Ben.
Ben got it. Ben wants the second. He's been trying, but he's standing behind a pole. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alrighty. Financial Secretary's report is next.
All right, on page 14, you'll see the financial secretary's report. Change the format just a little bit of the way I kind of reported. We adopted a new software system this past year and transitioned to that, and it's been a breeze, right? That's what it's called. So, Anna's the only one who knows what I'm talking about. That's why she laughed. So the top 4 lines on the chart at the top, on the left side of that whole column is the fund names, and those are all different funds that our congregation has given money to for various reasons, for ministerial association, for the warrior giving, for the youth, which is fantastic. But those are a pass-through. They come in and they go out. The top 4, the loose offering, the general fund, the building, and the church rent. Those 4 funds are what make up our giving budget. That's what makes up our budget as far as our income for the year to operate as our congregation. So if you look at the I guess the 3rd column on that report, and again, this is on page 14. It says the 2002 summary. We brought in, of course, you can imagine, because of the year, the numbers down, not passing the offering plates like we've been accustomed to. The loose offering is at $1,565. And in the general fund, for gifts designated as a general fund, we received $225,426. And one thing about that I kind of put in just to give you an idea of the trend and where things have moved. When I was vice president, I think we're about a 50-50 between what came in the envelopes and what was given online. And if you look across there, we received in our weekly envelopes, we received $72,459. Online, through our OSD program, which you can get a link to on our website, it's at the bottom. We received $140,955 this year. And Venmo, which was new just this past year, I believe, isn't that right, John? Past year, which I was dragging my feet on because honestly, I really didn't know what it was. I had to have somebody more connected than me to explain it to me, which pretty much is everybody. We brought in a little over $8,800 just for that. And it's interesting because on that, even though you can't set it up as a recurring gift, there is no fees involved with that. So it's just another way that we have that you can make your gifts to the church. And then we do still have the automated clearinghouse, which has just been set up. It's kind of it's been around for several years. And we have $3,000 of clear in there. But if you total all of those columns, those rows, we brought in, our giving was $237,371 this past year. Just what goes towards the operating expenses, what it takes out to run this, for our church. But we brought in almost $277,000 combined with everything that we have between Sunday school for the youth, mission trips, the food pantry, ministerial associations. So there's been a lot of giving that's gone through this church, and that's fantastic. And you go next page, the next slide,
Hey, John.
next slide.
What do you want?
We want that one, right? What you'll see, and I'm bringing this up now, a little bit out of order, since Alan's not getting to kind of, really kick it off right away. But let's face it, you've all looked ahead to see the last pages. So you've looked at what the spending plan numbers are. You're looking at this and you say, okay, there's, it's roughly a $38,000 proposed budget increase. That's a significant increase. Again, this is numbers that were based off of the feedback that we got from you guys, our congregation. Okay, through the surveys, through Kairos, through the meetings with Joe, this is where these numbers came from, because the spending plan was built off of that information. Next slide. So, $38,000, that amounts to a $730.77 weekly increase for the congregation. Next slide. That also, if you break it down even farther, you did the numbers on this, we have what I call the current giving household, or active current giving households. We have right at 120, and those are families and households that have given towards the 4 rows that make up our operational expenses for our congregation. That's where that $316.67 comes from, is breaking that down by the 120 households. That's $26.39 of a monthly increase per giving household. So of those 120, an additional $26.40 is what we're looking for, which amounts to $6.09 weekly. But that'd be one less Starbucks, one less drive-through. So that's how these numbers break down. I think there's one additional slide on there, John. This is one thing I kind of went through this about 3 weeks ago. We had asked and prayed and asked you as members to prayerfully look at your giving and increase your giving. I think that was back in maybe October. We started to really see that maybe in November. So the gifts that were increased in November really didn't add much to the 2021 bottom line. But I went through and counted those up. These are the recurring gifts. These are the gifts that are not a one-time gift, a large check, say a required minimum distribution, which I'll also bring that up. But we're already at $16,000.
Go back, John.
I added that up, and the people who have increased their gifts since we asked this in October, November, and those that have set up recurring gifts, either it be online or I have seen when they come through in their membership envelopes, they're giving envelopes. If you add that up throughout the year, and we're talking less than 20 households at this point, we're looking at approximately $16,000 that's going to be added to our budget this year, based off of the increase of the gifts that we've received so far. And that's less than 20 of the households. So when you look at that top number at 38, that can be daunting. But what I see is that bottom number, we're already at 16,000, and we haven't even talked to you about what the spending plan is for the year. So and as people on council know, sometimes I've been a little pessimistic about numbers. But I look at this, and this is, to me, is extremely positive. I can't remember actually looking at this way and seeing what those numbers look like this early in the fiscal year. So I'm very optimistic about 22. Is that the last one? That's fine. Oh, I mentioned required minimum distribution, which I think is really kind of look at that. Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about it just because I'm not at that point. And, so, in recent years, they've been a situation, I believe, Jeff, is that depending on your investments, you are required to take a minimum distribution of stock. Well, instead of taking that and selling it, cashing it in, paying your 20%. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Yes, go ahead.
So when you turn 72, you're required by the IRS to take money out of qualified accounts like IRAs or 401ks. Some people don't need or want that additional income. You can take it directly and then you can turn around and give a gift to a church or any other 501c3 that you see fit. Or you can give it directly so that you never actually receive it. It just goes directly. Also, sometimes people have appreciated stocks or mutual funds or ETFs that they don't really need and they don't want to cash it and pay the tax on it. Because even if you don't take it out of the account, if you sell it, you might have to pay tax. So we now have an account set up that if you saw fit and you wanted to give it directly to the church, you can give it directly to an account so that you could avoid paying those capital gains taxes on that appreciated stock and or required minimum distribution if you go directly to the church.
I am so glad Jeff was here.
Talk to me if you have any questions if you're wanting to do something.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Kimball. Whew, I think I was starting to swim a bit. That's kind of the breakdown of the financial secretary's report, kind of the history of where we're at in the year, and also where we're trending to, and different things that are in place. So if there's are there any questions on that? I kind of hope I went through everything fairly detailed. Great job, man.
Thank you.
All right, hi, I'm Anna Lynn, for those that don't know me. I am the financial treasurer. So what that means is Lance does a lot of the coming in money and I do all of the going out. So I pay all the bills and those sorts of things. So my report is on page 15 through 17 there in the back. It's just on the other side of what Lance just talked to you about. On that first page at the top, you'll see year 2021 restricted funds. And what restricted funds are basically if you give a gift and you want it to go to something specific, like when we do the pancake breakfast and everybody gives for Sunday school, or when we did the shoe closet and we collected for NAM. So things like that are run through the restricted funds so that we make sure if you say you want something to go to something that it specifically goes to that need that you have designated. The other thing that's on this report, if you look at the bottom, is our general checking and our general savings. So where we started at the beginning of last year and then where we ended at the end of the year. They're on the bottom. There's also a few other accounts of interest. So the food pantry, which is ran through NAMA, but it's at our location here. There at the bottom, that is the food pantry account, and that is controlled by NAMA, but we just kind of like to keep an eye on it so that we know that there's money there for that to continue. And then also we have the script account, which if some of you guys don't know, we have the script program where you can buy gift cards and a little bit of that percentage goes back to the church. And so that's where that money runs through. And then also we have an account where we run money for supporting the community garden that we run here to buy things for that. So are there any questions, on the restricted funds? Yes.
The script money used to go to our mortgage. We don't have mortgage.
Good question, yes. So last year, we designated some of that for the youth trip. And I don't know that we've discussed exactly where that extra money from last year will go, but I have a feeling that we have a lot of youth going, so I'm guessing that that's probably where it'll be designated. But good question. Anybody else? All right. So then if you turn over and you've got a big, nice open page, This is the actual budget, so this is what we vote on, and this is, that first column there is the actual, so what we actually spent on things. And then next to it is the budget that we set at the end of last year. And then at the very end is the difference between those two things. So as I will kind of run through this, we have different designations at the top for specific areas. So we have church life, we have education, which includes Sunday school, vacation Bible school, some of the staff continuing ed, confirmation. And then if you continue on, there's facility, which includes office supplies. And we do have a little bit of money set up in there for repair. Last year, we did have a general savings fund because that was something that when we paid off the mortgage, we decided that we were gonna designate some money to be put in the savings account and also some money for upgrades to the building. On this budget next year, we did not put in the general savings because we feel like we're continuing to do that. Because at the end of the year, we typically have money left over and that kind of is in our account for that. And then if you continue on, you'll see office, which has electric, gas, garbage. A shout out to John Sperry on telephone because we were way under budget because he called CenturyLink and got us a great deal. So thank you for that. And then if you look over on the other side, there is outreach, which includes GIG, which is the Girlfriends in God, the men's ministry, outreach in general. And then we're also adding OWLs to that this year for the budget, which I'm sure Alan will talk about. And then our major expense is personnel. And if you look down through that, a question that I get a lot is when you look at pastor housing versus pastor salary, because they're basically, one is way under budget, one is way over budget. That's just the way that we pay the pastor for tax purposes to make it better for him. Another thing on there, you'll see medical insurance. We're large under budget for that. We put in the budget in case we were to have to have a new pastor come and to be able to cover that. Right now, Nate graciously is covered with Carrie, so we pay a lot less for that. And then continuing on, we have stewardship, and then worship, which covers what you think. And then finally, youth, which is we had some youth camp scholarships, we paid for mission trips, and then Melissa's been doing lots of outings with the kids this year. So, and then if you look at the very bottom, so basically last year we actually spent more than we brought in. So we were about 5,500 more that we spent than we brought in, which is how the year ended, unfortunately. But I just wanted everybody to know that. So. But we do have money in checkings and savings that would easily cover that cost. So. Are there any questions? Awesome. I'm glad you did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I would entertain a motion to approve the financial reports in block. First, and do we have a second? Donna Sleeth's in the back with a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up is new business, and I'm actually going to flip-flop just a minute here. We have two new business items, but in order to do them a little bit easier, our first new item is our nomination committee. So every year we do put together a nomination committee to help nominate and look for new members to join council in the coming years. I believe we have three, or is it two? Three members that we are looking for. Do we have any volunteers to help serve on our nomination committee in the coming year? Angela, and we have Angela, and we have Jim. Do we have a third person that was willing to serve on our nominating committee this coming year?
Did Jim raise his hand? This Jim?
No, this Jim.
Who said this Jim?
Two Jims and an Angela. Jim Jones.
Yes. Jim Jones.
Yeah. Would anybody else be willing to serve on our nomination committee? I will. Yeah, you can put me there. I haven't been on that in like a decade. Can I get a motion to approve the new members of our nomination committee? Lance moved. Do we have a second? Did you give a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Now to the moment we've all been waiting for. New business on page 18 and 19. You will see our 2022 proposed spending plan. You will see a few differences, and I want to point those out, but first, the first thing is the name. We are really going to focus on, this is our spending plan. This isn't a budget. This is our spending plan. And while it might not sound much different, we really hope we focus on what this is intended to do. This is what we think as a or what a council has put forward to the congregation of what we think is important and how we want to spend the resources that we're given through this congregation. I'll go through some differences here from prior years. We did put in some items so you can see where we allocated funds last year to spend and where we are this year. The first is church life. Church life we have increased as you look at some of our focuses. One of them is fellowship events. We know that connecting is important to us. And so we want resources available to be able to have funds to spend so we can plan those connection activities and that fellowship events. The next item is in our education. This one you won't see a whole lot of change. We did increase it a little bit. When you look at the total budget, we were pretty much in line with where we were, so we had some very minor increases there, just as we know. Many of us know things cost a little bit more this year than they did last year, so we give them small increases. The facility, you'll see a couple differences here. First, we have merged our facility repair and our facility upgrade. We used to have them split, and sometimes it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense whether we're repairing it or upgrading it and trying to figure out which is it an upgrade or a fix. So we've actually increased that line from $7,200 to $11,000, but we've also merged it. You will also notice the general savings line that we had put in the last year. We have removed that. While we recognize when we first paid off the mortgage, it was important to kind of ease our way into what we thought was important. When we don't spend the funds, we're not a government agency, and so the money doesn't go away. If we don't spend it, it's in our savings account. If we do spend it, it's not in our savings account. So we decided from a budget perspective or spending plan perspective, we don't need to plan to save money. We want to use these resources that God gives us as intended, and that's not to stockpile them away. We have a rainy day fund. You can see from the restricted funds, we have some money, but we really don't think we need to continue to focus on building our savings account. Most of those other things are relatively smaller, are relatively in line. I will point out the water bill, if you're worried about that, just because some people do. The community garden has been paying a large percentage of our water bill that they use, and they have received enough funds that they will plan to continue to do that. So we have planned a spending plan based off of that expectation. The next category is office. You will see this is, again, very much in line. The biggest difference from the spending plan is the phone and internet, and that is because we didn't actually spend as much as we thought last year, so that we didn't think we needed to increase that. In fact, we didn't spend it all, so we decreased that one. The next one I'll point out is our outreach. You will see this one has gone up. While it's not a large percentage of our budget, it has gone up significantly. The first thing you'll see is we allocated funds for our OWLS group. They haven't had specific funding from our spending plan in the past, and now they will. Our men's ministry and our Girlfriends in God, our gig, have both been increased. Again, this is part of our outreach program, and we think this is important and a focus of ours. So we need to ensure that those have those. And we've also increased the general outreach ministry budget, so that we have funds to continue to do those activities. We know that sometimes it takes a little bit of money to do the planning, to do outreach, and we want to make sure those resources are available for that board as they plan their budget or plan their activities for this coming year. The next category here is our staff and personnel. This is our biggest budget area and has been since I've been a member here, and it will probably continue to be. I will point out, you will see some increases and some differences. I will point out that this budget, or this spending plan includes a 5% increase in salaries for our administrative assistant, our musicians, our custodian, our youth and family ministry coordinator. I will point out, while you do see youth and family ministry coordinator budget line being slightly lower, it's not because of a change in pay. That's an hourly position, and we think that that's enough to cover the hours that we're currently been using. So we've been underspending that line in the last couple of years due to the number of hours. This also does increase. You will see pastor salary. This does include a 5% increase for pastor salary as well. And then there's some insurance. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but some of the insurance costs are going up. And so we're clear on how we put together the spending plan. The insurance is equivalent to 9 months of what our ELCA expense would be if we got insurance through the ELCA. Through Portico, which is part of our ELCA group. So that is how we put in there. So we do not necessarily expect to spend that like in prior years, but we do want to make sure our spending plan covers that in case we need it. And now to the big one that you will see. You probably heard us talking about this in the weeks leading up to this. We do have a line item in there for our new ministry staff. With the spending plan, we do hope to bring on another staff member to help us look at how we are doing things and be a prophetic voice of our congregation. The final details of that job position are being worked on as we in the next couple of weeks. We'll hopefully have them finalized and start that search. But Nate, did you want to talk a little bit about that now?
Okay, so there's a proposal here for new ministry staff, and that again, we keep tying this back. I hope you hear this. We keep tying this back to what we heard you say in our in that listening phase in the summer and fall. And a congregational mission life director, okay, or a director of mission life for the congregation is kind of the title that we're working with, right? That person, a part-time position, would do 3 things for us, would help us do 3 things better. And one of those things, priority number 1, would be to connect the members and friends of this congregation into the life of the congregation, okay? So inviting you to be a part of the congregation more than you are, right? Inviting you as members, and this seems silly because you're the people who stuck around for the meeting, right? You're already invested, right? But we know that there's a lot of other folks who, we're a part of New Life, but we're not really, right? And so helping to invite connection into the life of the congregation. That person also, as a part-time staff position, has the expectation that there would be 3 to 5 significant serving events in the community. So connecting people into the congregation, but connecting the congregation out into the community. Okay, we can do that better. Often, what happens with our service opportunities is that I'll just be plain and frank with you. Lisa Smith will have an incredible idea because she often does, right? And she will say we should go do this. Dave Labey and Jim Lund and Dan and a few other folks will show up. There'll be 3 or 4 or 5 of us that will show up, and we'll go out and do something. And we'll say, hey, look, the congregation did this, right? Dave and Jim and Dan and a few other folks did it, right? We need to do better at our service events involving the whole congregation, right? And I'm saying that as an invitation to you to know that this, the Mission Life Director will invite us to get a little bit more serious about how we make Christ known in the community by serving as a community, right? This faith community serving the community. And then, so priority 1, members into the life of the congregation. Priority 2, congregation out into the community. Priority 3 is to serve as a prophetic voice. And so what that means is that this person would also have a preaching role in the life of the congregation 8 to 12 times a year to help call us as congregation into what we can be. And so that's a part-time staff position, but that Mission Life Director does those 3 things for us. We hope, we pray, and we expect that to be true. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about what that Mission Life Director position looks like? It's still in a draft stage. It's still a bullet point job description kind of thing. But that's, again, some of the results of the surveys that we took over the course of the year. Matt?
And Lily, you probably don't know this, but do you guys envision that being someone that we've got more for several years, or do you think that's gonna be more of a working through like, one of the colleges finding, I guess I'll call it an intern?
Right.
But that may change every year or two with a younger body.
Yeah, so Matt's question was, is this a long-term position? What does that look like? Ryan, I'll tell you right now, in the draft job description, we have it listed as a 2-year term position with the option for renewal. So that we do want somebody who is invested in the life of the congregation, not just kind of we're going to be here for 9 months and then we're gone, and then we'll be here for 9 more months and then we're gone, and we won't really have anybody in between kind of thing, right? But also expecting that that's not a lifelong appointment, right? Kind of thing. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, what are you interested in?
Sorry. I
Great.
don't know
What?
the way it goes with it, but is this person gonna be also like involved in trying to develop some of the, say, you said like 3 to 5 things we go to serve the community or whatever. Are they gonna be involved in developing them? New ideas or different ideas or?
Yeah, I think this person ideally works with the staff currently, works with the council currently, works with the board members, particularly outreach, church life, right? Those two board positions. But is the kind of the primary person who develops and plans and recruits and executes those service events in the community, right? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Yeah, Sandy.
The job description that we received the other night at the council meeting said, well, and you just said that the position would cover preaching like 8 to 12 times a year. Does that mean that you're looking for people with preaching experience, or people that are preachers, or are you willing to train somebody to preach?
Yes, ideally, that person has some experience in preaching. Yes, Sandy, yes. And worship leadership. Yeah. Tracy?
Sorry. Would it also, you're saying it'd be like maybe 2 years or a 2-year appointment and then kind of go from there? Is there an idea on it of it being like a junior pastor type situation or not?
Yeah, don't know. This would be a staff position, does not need to be a pastor. Could be, and ideally would be, but does not need to be. This position is not a called position through the synod, okay? This is a staff position and a term position that would help us as a congregation. Yeah?
Thank you. So as we talk through the rest of the spending plan, you will see a significant new allocation there for this new staff position. We did some rough numbers, obviously, since we haven't approved the ability to move forward with that yet. This is kind of expected to be this year, approximately 9 months of the expense. knowing that, as we look at commitment, most likely next year it will be higher because it will be for a longer period of time in the coming year if we find when we find someone. So this year it is a slightly eased a little bit just because we have to go through the process of finalizing those details and then finding the right person for us. I'll continue with our spending plan. The Board of Worship, very small differences. I will point out two things that we increased. We increased on the spending plan, the benevolence and the amount to our Lutheran Bible translators, both by 10%. And we felt as council, it's important as we continue to spend or increase our expected spending, that we also increase how much we spend, our increase in spending to our synod. We send a relatively, certain amount of money to our synod every year. $12,480 to be exact this past year. And we did increase both that and our expenses to our Lutheran Bible translators to both by 10%. I will point out, if you look at last year's to this year's, some of the numbers for certain expenses have been recategorized just to try to make sure that they fit a little bit better. As we add new expenses, sometimes they don't be put in the exact same spot as they were the prior year. So we did move a couple of them into different categories, but the dollar amounts are still on the budget or on the spending plan. You will see worship supplies. We did go over this year in worship supplies, and we know that in today's environment, some of our supplies are different than they used to be. So we've increased that a little bit to help make sure that we have a realistic idea of what we're spending there. Then the next item is youth. You will see a couple changes here. The first is for youth camp scholarships. We actually have some restricted funds for youth camp scholarships, so we didn't actually spend our expected money last year. And since we know we still have some restricted funds specific for that purpose, we decided not to put in a line item this year. The other item you'll see is a big change in is the youth ministry trip. We actually increased this one significantly. This year we had a expectation of spending $500. In next year our spending plan is for $3,000. So people may ask, right now I think we have approximately 25. 19 and 9. So 19 and 9 would be 28, if I can still add. So we have 28 youth anticipating going on a youth trip this summer. 19 middle schoolers going to South Dakota, and 9 high schoolers, middle school to high schoolers going to the ELCA youth gathering in Minnesota. So knowing that number, we did increase this, but knowing that's 28, as you can, if most of you, that's approximately $100 per youth going. We thought that was important to show that commitment, as they are a faith of Christ of our congregation when they go out. So again, as we talk about outreach, one of those is a mission trip. The other one is to our ELCA youth gathering. So that's where we increase that. Going over all of those, that means that the proposed spending plan for 2022 is $283,534.80. So I like to get really, no, I'm just kidding. It just happened to be a couple of the items like FICA are percentages, so that's where we get the 80 cents from. Does anybody have any questions about the proposed spending plan? Yes.
Just a question, okay, after it goes on vacation, we usually have a guest minister come in.
Yeah, so.
Service type thing, is that also included then, or is it?
Yeah,
new staff member comes in and plays, or how is?
Great question. Yeah, so in our spending plan, we did still put a small amount of money in for supply worship, or supply preaching. In past years, it's been higher. We did reduce it, knowing that we're not going to necessarily have someone right away. But yes, the hope is that when pastor is gone, those would be some of the Sundays that the new staff person would fill in for. So the new staff would fill in days when Nate would not be here, but we also know that we don't have that person yet, so we will still probably have some supply preaching costs in the beginning.
It seems to me that it seems to be a pretty vast job description that you're thinking about, and thinking who might actually want to for that. So, I don't know, I just.
Yeah, it is a very wide, and we hope to find the right person. And if we struggle with that in the coming year, that is the proposal. And as we talk about when we look at that final job description, that is our goal of what we're looking for. And if, there are opportunities to have that adjusted if necessary. Right now, the council hasn't finalized the final, but that is but it is a broad, the focus is going to be connecting and outreach with the ability, with some ability to continue. And we think that's connected, right? As we talk about how we outreach in the community, that starts with our congregation in here. So we hope that those will meld better than we, at first they kind of seem distinct, but they do have some connections, so.
Yeah, this is to Gloria. Right now, we're envisioning a 15 to 20 hour a week position. Anybody in ministry knows that, you kind of double it, right? And that's true of any job, right? But if we paid Sandy an hourly rate, it would be pretty abysmal because she works way longer than 9 to 3. I think that's like in her job description, but like, we're gonna try to start small, but we want to start somewhere. And we want to, potentially grow that position for sure. And if things go really, really well, we'll be able to act on those kinds of things. But right now, we're looking for about a 15 to 20 hour a week kind of position. On average, whatever, right? Back and forth.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the proposed 2022 spending plan. First, do we have a second? Carolyn. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carried. Okay, go back to my agenda. What's next?
That's a clappable moment.
Can I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our annual meeting? Christy, I saw it. She was fast. She was way faster. I do need a second, which I got Leslie as a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Join us downstairs for lunch. I took you a little bit over, but hopefully it's still nice and